YouTubers or the YouTubers and the FaceTimers didn't quite get the live intro, but that's all right. So here we are in the River West Radio, and we have Caroline Blanchard and Deb Drummond. Deb, tell us, say hello to the folks out there and to Milwaukee and introduce yourself.
Hey, welcome Milwaukee. Welcome to Canada. And the interesting thing about myself and Caroline is we are as pretty well far apart across Canada as you can get. So she is East Coast and I am West Coast. So I'll stand up for the West Coast. She can stand up for the East Coast. And nice to be here, Milwaukee.
So Dave Clark always wants to know, your hockey teams. But I know you guys aren't completely into sports, but a little bit, because you've had some children that competed in some things. And so Dave's like, because they're Canada, I want to talk hockey.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Deb cannot talk hockey because I don't think they're in the series, right?
Oh, look at this, the fire started. So I am a true Canucks fan, and my son-in-law is a referee for WHL. So I was raised on Peter Puck, and I got to say, I'm a local girl. I'm gonna. My heart's open for them for next season. But Caroline's in the running.
Well, great. Well, we're glad to have you both on the show. Deb is on audio only, and Caroline, we get to see your lovely face on Facebook and YouTube, and so glad to have you on here and with Dave and I, and just kind of maybe Deb should start. Deb, we kind of met you in a kind of a unique way. What's your perspective on how you got involved with Dave Clark and myself?
Yeah. Here's what I have. I've been around the planet a few seasons, I'm going to say, and so the fact that everyone can't see me, I'm not going to share my age. But here's what I know: when you're meant to meet somebody, you meet them. Period. I've had way too many experiences and way too many what I call kind of God drops, where it's like, woo, there's a kind of like me and Caroline met, and I'll let her tell that story. But we met through social media, and I got to tell you, if you know me, that's not a place that I've been hanging out very much before this interesting health challenge that the world was up against. And we met on social media. I don't even remember why or how, because I've stopped and wondered when I'm supposed to meet somebody what it's about, and then you get into that conversation. I think we were talking about, maybe the podcast or what he's doing. And I have one of my children, he has a little bit of a challenge, and I know we were talking about having kids with challenges, and then it went from one thing to another to where it's exactly supposed to be, and that was podcasting and book and support on each other's projects. So
right.
We met media. Yeah.
Right, and it wasn't too long ago when you guys aired the podcast with Dave and I, and that was a lot of fun. I was down in Florida, and there's a little picture on the screen for those that can see it, and we actually had a fun time. That was a very fun interview, and you guys made it easy on us, asking great questions. Hopefully, we can do the same. I'm not sure if we're as polished as the True That show, to be truthful. I don't know. So,
how did you come up with the title of the show?
Good question.
Go ahead, Caroline. How did you guys come up with the True Dat show's title?
In a nutshell, I don't like when people lie. I don't like when people are not telling the truth or making stuff, greater than it is. So we were talking about lifepreneurship, and we came up with that title because there's a lot of people that, they go through life almost like if their life was a business. To have it successful, you go in life as an entrepreneur. You organize yourself, you discipline yourself, and then you go through it and you try to have a successful life. But quite often when you do ask people, how did you get there? You have all the nice sides of the story and you see the successes, but you don't see the real grit that it took, or the real challenges, the real journey. So we wanted to call our show No BS Show, but that was not proper. So we went and found a positive spin, and it came to True Dat. And actually, Deb and I, when we talk, sometimes she'll be like, True Dat, sister. So it's just about getting the real stuff. We want to talk to real people who will really share what they went through, and not just the good sides of things. Yeah. That's how we came up with the title.
Makes
So
sense.
then I'm even more confused to how you had Dave and I on your show, especially Dave.
Well, we needed to have some popular people.
Oh, there you go. And again,
No.
I'm still amazed. But yeah, obviously, I think you guys learned even more on the show. You know what amazing person he is, and that Dave Geis had to deal with him so many years ago on playing baseball with him and all those kind of things. So anyway,
No, but for this just a little bit more seriously, you guys are doing some fantastic work. And I mean, Dave Clark is a true definition of perseverance and going through stuff and having grit. And you too, with your son and everything. And you guys decided to really turn all of that positive and then give forward. So that's really what we're attracted to. So not only because you were popular, because you had a great story.
Very good. Well, we
Thank you.
appreciate the compliments, and we'll pay you more the next time we do the show. So, hey Deb, I have a question for you, and it's I want to get right into our big question with you guys, because kind of like what we talked about on your show was that camaraderie and different things, and obviously the title of our show is Pulling Each Other Along, with the new book coming out and putting the websites together and all the things that people don't see behind the scenes for a project like this. But Deb, why don't you tell us what you think has pulled you along in your life?
I was obviously thinking about that today, knowing we're going to be having this interview, and me and Caroline were we were working this morning, doing interviews and that kind of thing. And when I was like, oh, it's encapsulated into thing, what's really pulled me along. I have to say that going through the different phases in my life that I did, and there was some funky stuff. There was there were some interesting things that I'd gone through. It's been the support and the voice of people that have gone through things like I have, but they went before me. I'm a huge believer. I mean, huge believer in you've got to tip your hat to the women or the men or the people that went through exactly what you're going through before you and are willing to turn around. You know what this is like, and this is what I did, and this is how I got through, and hey, do you need some help? And so I'm a big believer in pay it forward, pay it backwards. And when I think about, all the things that you find out about somebody when you spend enough time that me and Caroline do together, and we actually met on a marketing tour in Australia. We never knew each other before. We landed on the same trade show. We did 11 flights and 13 hotels with 6 other women. Now that is a podcast within itself, let me tell you. Not everybody left friends, but we did. And so I think when all the projects that we've got going on, just kind of like you guys, I think that we're just kind of masters at tag teaming it. When she's up, I might not be when opposites, and we've pulled each other through in these last 3 or 4 years of really massive, interesting growth. So yeah, that's my answer. I don't know if she'll say the same thing about me.
Well, we'll ask her in a little bit, but you guys have this word that I saw on your Facebook, on your YouTube channel, all those kind of things, called lifepreneurship, and it's already come up today, and I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more with you too. And I don't know who the better one is to share what that means, but what does that mean? That's a kind of your own made up word. Yeah. What does that mean to you guys? Share to our audience.
So a lifepreneur is kind of, in Caroline's words, it's an everyday hero. So we're both entrepreneurs, and we do a lot of support around supporting entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. We spend a lot of time with new people that are just breaking that ground. And what we recognize throughout the years is that there are people out there that are doing fantastic work as, being incredible heroes. I mean, we've had incredible heroes in Canada. For example, a lifepreneur would be someone like Terry Fox, who is making impact, who's changing lives like entrepreneurs do, going all in life. But it's not something that they're doing for business or getting paid for. And so we didn't want to take anyone out of the game. Like, there's people, everyday heroes out there that people need to know from, that get inspired from, and they don't have to be running a business. And so, that was really the premise around Lifepreneurs, because whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you're putting yourself out there, if you're jumping off the cliff and hoping to God there's a net somewhere, we want to talk to you.
Gotcha.
We want to hear from them.
Right. And so giving those people, a little platform to go and is that basically what you're trying to do with the True That show that you guys have?
Yeah, we created a platform to have people come on, and here's one of the most interesting stories. So we had a guy come on, and his name's Dennis Wager, and he has a explosion. He has a demolition company. People are like, what the heck? Right? And I'm like, yeah, but here's his story, right? Here's a guy that kind of blows stuff up. And people don't really understand. They're like, well, that's kind of weird. You have someone who's trying to blow stuff up. And I'm like, well, not really, when you think about the fact that you got to blow stuff up underwater and you want to be able to do it so it doesn't mess with the culture, or the coral, or fisheries or what have you. But this is a guy who literally started his business because he had a Harley. It was his dream bike when he was a teenager, and he had to make the payment, and he couldn't make the payment because he lost his job. And so he started making picnic benches and said to his mom, I'm going to sell these. And she's like, yeah, good luck for that. And so he took it down to this flea market, and he was the last kid standing. No one had bought this thing to the very end of the flea market, and one woman walked up and bought it. And he had his first, I call it the magic of commerce. It's like when it all comes together, and then he continued throughout the rest of his next 30, 40 years being an entrepreneur because he had that experience and took the risk. And him telling that story and someone listening to that makes him go, wow, if that guy can do it, I can do it. So, yeah. Very,
very good. And so I appreciate those kind of stories, because, we're, in many cases, we're all still there. We're trying to make our lives more entrepreneurial. We're trying to make an impact in the world. And sometimes people don't realize the nitty gritty things that we do to make that happen. And so those are great examples of, it's like, Dave Clark, I can equate it to you, when he was willing to work literally 6 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day workouts, with no guarantee that he would even get one shot from a professional baseball team. And the chances of him even getting that shot were not great, but he put the work in anyway, and he got ready. And it's those things of throwing a ball up against the wall, up against the garage, over and over and over again, doing the same thing over and over, trying to perfect it, changing your hand grips, all those things. And it's those little things that eventually can pay off. But the people that aren't willing to do that, it's not going to happen. So Caroline, who has pulled you along in your life?
Deborah. No, I'm just saying that to make her happy. No, I'm joking. I've had a really busy life. So I feel like I was really always very blessed to have guardian angels placed on my road at different times. So I always had someone that was there to carry me along. So I'm not going to just pick one, because it would be unfair. But the one that is really pulling me along right now is Deb. And I'm not just joking right now, it's true. But because we are working so much together on projects and everything like that, and when you're an entrepreneur and it's independent projects, it can be tough some days. Some days you get up and you're not into it, or some days you have rejections or no's, then you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So having someone, a partner like that you can rely on, and that you can share your struggles, and she always is there to, pick me up and help me keep going. So I would say that in the last year, she's one of the consistent ones to always be there.
Very good. And do you have like a specific story that comes to mind of that would exemplify that kind of pulling each other along? I don't usually go this deep, but I'm doing it with you. Maybe
between Deborah and I, well, you know what? She's joking with the Australia trip, saying it could be a full podcast. And I'm actually disappointed that I wasn't on my phone as much back then, because I should have filmed it. It would have been an amazing reality show. but 6 women that are all developing a business, not together, so kind of competitive, traveling 5 weeks together and 11 airports and all the luggages and things like that. I can tell you that it can become very catty, you know, and I'm sure I'm not revealing a big secret here. We tend to do that, women, sometimes. But anyway, on that trip, it was a lot like that. And Deborah and I became instantly allies. You know, at first we didn't know each other, but yes, there was a bit of backstabbing within the group, and she had my back and I had her back. And that was even before we started being friends. It was just like the energy that we were, her energy and my energy were like, I knew she would be a friend. I don't know if that makes sense. But, and because we're entrepreneurs and we're building our own business, which means we're building our family legacy and everything, you know, these kind of things, having someone have your back is huge, because it's really, it deals with your paycheck, basically. It deals with, you know, your bread and butter. So that was really big.
Right. Very good. All righty. So we always have Tom asking me a big question that we share on this show, and you both get to answer it tonight. Dave, do you want to do the big question tonight? Because you're really
is the big question about sweets.
Yes.
So the question we always ask our guests. So I'll ask both of you, Deb and Caroline. What is your favorite donut?
Who wants to go first? Deb?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you're never going to have me back as a guest.
Oh, no.
You're never going to have me back as a guest. No, I will tell you what my favorite donut is. But you're talking to a woman who's been sugar-free, gluten-free, and dairy-free for 30 years.
There's got to be a sugar-free, gluten-free, dairy-free donut out there, right?
There is, and someone's listening. I want to give you my address, because this is my truth. So I've refrained from many things that I would love to eat for 30 years for, you know, health reasons and just whatever. Health reasons. And so I have a list of things that if I was on my deathbed and I knew that I was going to the other side, that I would want to eat before I go, that I have not eaten. And one of them is a eclair, a beautiful eclair filled with whipped cream and chocolate on top, as well as just a basic, beautiful glazed donut. So if and when, because you know that will happen, I'm shoving an eclair in my face and I'm savoring a beautiful glazed donut.
Right. So if you're not familiar with why we asked that, is because I had to put donuts in my children's book with Dave holding a donut away from his dog because of Dave's love for donuts. So it's one of those hidden treasures, and it's not like he eats donuts all the time, but actually probably not very much at all. But he does have a love for them.
I have not had a donut since that.
Could be very different than mine.
All right, Caroline, you are in the hot seat with the donut question.
Well, I only know the French name. So it's called a beignet du jour. It's glazed chocolate and inside it's custard.
Well, that sounds like a Boston cream, but I'm not 100%.
There you go, Boston cream. But I do want to say a little thing about Deb, because she is sugar-free, dairy-free, and fun-free and everything. Like anything that is good, she's not touching it, basically.
She's fun-free?
No, she's fun, but I mean, you know, everything that we indulge in, she's not touching any of that. But if you go to her place, every single holidays, meaning Easter, Valentine's, like any holidays, she has a team candy bar at the entrance. I'm a sugar, so when I go to her place, I'm like eating all those candies, and she's looking at you like. And then she gives her brain lectures on how sugar is bad for you. But if you go to her place, it's always full of candies. So that's a big contradiction. That doesn't seem to fly very well. But I know you guys are big into the health industry and appearance and just making people feel better.
What part of that world, because to me, that helps pull people along. And so if you're helping people be healthy, so what's inspired you? How does that fit into your business, your entrepreneurial, your lifepreneur world?
You know what? I think we could both answer that question, and probably pretty differently. I've been in the health and wellness field for 30 years, and it started with me in my 20s getting really sick. And, you know, I'm mid-50s, and so there wasn't words like naturopaths and alternative anything back then. But I was sick enough that there was a woman that I worked for, and she said, I have a naturopath, you need to go see this guy. And I had no idea what a naturopath was, but when I went and they did this thing called Vega testing, all these things showed up as allergies. And they actually, I went and saw this guy for a year and got off the allergies and herbs and all sorts of things. And I had fallen in love with natural care, and I'd ran a private health studio and massage, and I just really, really got into it. It was a game-changing, life-changing feeling I never had before. Like, to have things that were out of my body that were causing a little bit of havoc and a little bit of havoc and a little bit of havoc, enough to take me to that pinnacle point. So from that point on, when I started getting healthy and felt ways I never had before, I really wanted to share that with other people. And it took a long time. You know, it took a long time for our world and our culture to get prepared to kind of live in a different way. I mean, I was raised meat, potato, and vegetable, you know, just like everybody else with a little chart in school. So for me, it was me being very unwell and then becoming well that made me start to open up to living like that for a long time.
Very good. Caroline?
Such a different story. No, I've never looked at health that much. For me, it's like I would train and work out because I liked it. And then I had my kids, and I thought I was doing the best that I could to feed them as good as I could for what I knew back then. And then about 9 years ago, someone approached me with some products, and she started explaining, you know, how everything that we put on our skin affects our state in general, because your skin is your largest organ. So everything that you put on your skin goes into your bloodstream within 26 seconds. And when she started, explaining that, I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about my kids, even though I was only 30 something. You know, for me, it's like, oh, damage is done. I'm going to move on. But my kids, I need to be careful. So I came home that day and I just cleaned all of the products, like all those cute shampoos that smell like berries and that are red and all of these things. And I started reading the labels of the products that I was using, because I was doing that with food, but I never thought about doing that with what I was putting on myself and on them. And that's when I became, you know, more aware of all of that. And I'm a bit of an extremist. So when I do something, I really do it. So I just jumped in and started following really the more natural health path. But I'm not as extreme as Deb. I have to say, I still indulge into a few things.
Well, that's good to hear. That makes all three of us feel a little bit better. So, although I've been trying not to indulge, but still in that mode where I'm in a pattern where I'm trying to be mostly good, but not anything's not off limits, so that you can make it a little more sustainable for our health. And but I understand the people that especially if you have allergies and things like that, you just can't do it. It's certainly not good for your body. And you want to make sure those things are great. So what else do you guys have? What else is your lifepreneurship taking you on this pair between Deb and Caroline?
Oh man, there's so many cool things. There's, we share a lot together in terms of, we work really well together in this. I mean, you've got two people, one East Coast, one West Coast, and we do presentations 4, maybe 5 times a week, where we talk about really truly the aspect of ingredients and why people should care. And I have a background in teaching on brain health, and so yeah, that's why it's kind of funny I have sugar at the front door. But I believe that people can have a little treat every once in a while. It's a little different when Caroline stays over, but that's okay. but we've got really big plans, and we've taken our business international, which is interesting, right? Because we're looking forward to getting back on planes. We were supposed to head into Europe right before this little condition that started to spread, and so I believe we're going back to those plans of being able to build international and kind of, talk about how 26 seconds of a product on your skin gets into your system and why you don't want to do that. And then the other thing is, just kind of double down on this entrepreneur world. I mean, the stats and the numbers and how it shows how everybody has been able to build themselves a business online and how essential that's been. Like, that's just been so essential. And this last year and a half, I'm going to speak for myself, but I know I can speak for her too. It's been, truly, it's been a bit of an exhausting experience, because we kind of doubled down on helping people that got hurt in this economy. And we put our hands out everywhere, to the point where we were sometimes doing 10, 12, 14-hour days, helping people create their own business by being able to tap into the beauty products, the health products, the wellness products that we distribute. And they can build themselves something online and rebuild if they got hit in the pandemic, or sustain in something that's here to stay, which is obviously a strong e-commerce platform from this point on. We're building, you know what, I'm going to stop there, because that's a big part of what we do, and I'm going to let Caroline talk about the next business.
Well, we're going to get her after the break. We've got about 30 seconds left. This has been the Pulling Each Other Along show with Dave Clark, Dave Geis, and myself, Doug Cornfield, on the 104.1 River West Radio. We've had special guests Caroline and Deb from the True That Show. If you're just listening in, we're going to take a short break. I've got something that I'm going to show all to my Facebook friends. So if you want to join us on the Pulling Each Other Along show on Facebook and YouTube, we'll see you in just a moment. Good night, Milwaukee. It's been great talking to you.
Good night, everybody.
And now we are to our non-live show. So now you can misbehave. Oh no, except for Dave Clark. He never misbehaved. So I was alluding to something that Dave was asking me to put together. And Deb, you're not going to be able to see this, but being a picture, hopefully you'll be able to see it on the live broadcast, and maybe the people that are on Facebook will enjoy this and be able to comment.
Oh, so man, that's cool.
What I have on the screen is Dave Clark pitching from crutches. And, of course, that's a picture from so long ago, it's not even in color. And then we have a picture of his son, Trey, from a couple of weeks ago, Dave? You sent that to me?
Yeah.
And, Dave Geis, I've had you on mute. I don't know if you were trying to say anything, but sorry about that.
It's all right.
So we got the side-by-side. And I've always said Trey, when it comes to Trey, and if you don't, obviously most people don't know Trey like I know Trey. But in this case, I say Trey is like an apple that still hasn't fallen from the tree. It's still dangling. He's so much like his father that it's quite scary, actually.
That's
Maybe he'll be a Colgate boy someday like his dad. I'm not sure. So anyway, Dave was asking me to put that together. He'd sent that picture to me a week or two ago, and
that was very
finally I
put it. Cool. That was pretty cool.
Put it into play, because he said it was. I mean, really, his arm angle is a little different than yours, but
not much.
Not a whole lot.
Nope.
Yeah, and it's cool because you both have the shortstops in the background, and it's kind of a cool picture. So anyway, we threw that on
down for some reason.
Right. So, well, thank you guys, Caroline. This is kind of and Deb, this is kind of our after show that we do. And this can last 5 minutes, or it can last 15 or 20 or whatever. But I know you guys are in different time zones. Deb, what time is it for you today?
You know what? It's only 5 o'clock for me.
Okay.
So.
And then for Caroline, you're 8 o'clock, right? You're on the.
Yeah, she's still here.
Yeah, she's
Easter.
Almost my bedtime.
Yeah, it's I'll stay up tonight. My son is coaching national. His team's Northern Arizona University. He's a coach there, and they're in the national meet. And one of his runners did great last night in a 10,000 meter, and he's got one of his female runners running tonight. and then he's got another runner tomorrow, and so it's all on ESPN, so I've been watching that. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
Pretty cool to be able to watch that on ESPN.
Very cool.
So that was fun to watch last night. But they're in Oregon, so it's 3 hours. So I'm like staying up late watching a live track meet at 11 o'clock at night. So
I have a question for you, Dave. Like, for someone who played, like, baseball took so much, a big part of your life. Now that your son is going on the same route, what's the feeling like? Oh my goodness, I'm so happy with him. He will get to enjoy the same kind of life, or oh goodness, stay away from that.
No, I think good question. But one thing I'll never do is push him to. I mean, whatever it is that he aspires to do. Same with our daughter. I'm going to support him. So it's. I mean, Trey has had the unique opportunity to be around clubhouses and pro stadiums and pro players because of what we do. I don't know if he realizes that at the moment. I think the older he gets, the more he gets it. But would I like to see him? I'd like to see him top his old man. I'd like to see him, his. So
you want him to be a catcher?
What's that?
You want him to be a catcher, not a pitcher, right?
Well, we don't want him wearing the tools of ignorance, Dave. But, no, whatever he chooses. If and at 10, 11 years old, you have no idea what the skill level is going to be when they're 17, 18. So and people get caught up in that today. They get caught up with, my son is striking everybody out in Little League. Well, he's going to be the next superstar major leaguer, and that's not true. I mean, they need time to be kids. They need time to grow up. I think one of the things we do today is we push our kids into specialty units if they show a passion for something. We got all these travel baseball teams now and travel hockey teams, and I just don't feel those are good for the development of the overall person, because you can't have every weekend tied up with baseball or hockey. They need time to be kids too. So your question, would I like to see him follow? Obviously I would, and I could probably open some doors for him that other kids might not have. But it'll be his choice, whatever he decides to do.
Caroline, Dave's only gotten thrown out of one Little League game.
He wasn't on the team.
Just once.
As an adult.
Come on, give me a break, guys. Give me a break.
We told that story a few weeks ago, but it is kind of funny. But he did get
my sister has 5 boys, and I'm the baby of the family. So my oldest is the same age as her youngest, and I would go watch her, be a hockey mom, and I thought she was completely delusional. I was just like, what are you doing? Screaming at people on the ice, like, hold yourself. And you see them going crazy. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I was almost embarrassed. Well, when I had my son starting hockey and then my daughter was in competitive soccer, I was that mom. And then, I was the one crazy, screaming and following them every single weekend, was tied up with, sports. And I absolutely agree with you that we push them sometimes too young, because, probably at that age, it's raw talent. But if they don't do anything with their raw talent, it's not going to, you need to develop that into discipline and something else. But yeah, I was saying that because I almost got kicked out of a game as well.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not one of those hockey baseball parents, because I kind of sit off in the background, and I don't yell and scream and
He did all
carry
that.
on like that. And you got to know the background of me getting supposedly kicked out of the Little League game. So it's not what it sounds like. But I have, this year they did ask me to help with the pitchers on the Little League team and some of the other positions as well. So reluctantly, I agreed to do that because preferably I like to sit in the background, keep my mouth shut, and watch my son play.
Dave, guys, you must have a different perspective of that.
Well, I can understand Dave not yelling and screaming, and as right now, but because he got all that out of his system as a manager. Back in the day, we'd see him yelling and screaming all the time. So he just got it all out of his system. Now he's good to go.
He's good to go. Do you ever remember a good game when he got thrown out of a game?
I don't really remember him getting tossed out of a game.
Wow.
To be honest with you. It was always post-game that issues would come up. But I don't remember him getting all that irritated with umpires or anything like that during a game.
Oh, my goodness.
No, to be honest, I really don't.
Wow, that's a little surprising to me based on all the stories that I've heard, et cetera, et cetera. But
I mean, he even tried to break up fist fights during a game,
Yeah, now I can see that too. I mean, I can see both sides of that, trying to protect your players, trying to get in between or whatever. So I can see that. So anyway, Deb and Caroline, it's been a pleasure to have you guys on. Thanks for having us on the True Dat Show. Where can people find the shows? I think it's pretty much Google, because that's what I've done. Search the True Dat Show, right?
Yes. Or you can go on CTR network.com/TrueDat. All of our podcasts are there.
CTR
Network,
CTR Network. And that's where it's syndicated from there, that your particular show. And I know you guys put a lot of work in to advertise it and promote it. And you're probably a little further ahead than us with that side of it. But I'm working on a few things.
But you know what? In the end, it's just time will do it. So it's the more you do, the more. So you can do a lot of marketing or whatever. People have to like you and follow you.
We're in trouble. Somebody's in trouble. I don't know.
No, I think you guys are very likable.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, you're one of the few that think that.
We actually had, if you didn't see last week's guest, she was really special. She was calling us in from Mexico, and we were chatting through WhatsApp, because WhatsApp's more of the international type thing. And she basically gave us, I think, one of the greatest compliments we've gotten so far, because she's been on all sorts of these podcasts. She's had videos that have literally been watched millions of times on YouTube with her illness and her recovery, and her personality's kind of spunky. And she texted me afterwards. She goes, I've been on many of these podcasts, but this one was the most fun, that she'd ever had. So that was fun. That was a real, and different guests, we have different things happen, and it doesn't always run the same way and the same smoothness. But that was a nice compliment coming from somebody that's been on the podcast. And I can say that Dave and I, when we got done your podcast, we could kind of say the same thing. It was like, that was a lot of fun. It was easy. It was smooth. And it felt like we got some of our stories in so that we could hopefully be heard, what we're trying to do and accomplish. And we just scheduled some camps, and in Hickory, North Carolina, we've got a date. And in Hudson Valley, New York, we got a date. And we're going to do our corning camp. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more. So at least we're inching along, getting back, putting our tiptoe in the water and getting the disability sports camps going again, which has obviously been a pretty difficult year to manage all those things. So, Deb, are you still there? You want to give any last parting words, something that's brewing?
You know what? This was fun. And honestly, I think that's what this is about. Like, I think when you meet people, the connection doesn't start with the beginning of the interview and end with the interview. We've got we're going to know what you guys are doing. You're going to know what we're doing. And I think our paths are going to cross quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to the relationship, not just the interview. So thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Well, you are welcome. And again, this has been the Pulling Each Other Along show, after show edition from the 104.1 River West Radio. It's Dave Clark, Dave Geist, Doug Cornfield, and our special guests, Carolyn Blanchard and Deborah Drummond. And we are so glad that you guys came. If we can all just say goodbye to our folks out there, I will end the Pulling Each Other Along stream. Goodbye, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.